Alright, part 4. Here we go. Chapter 16. So, after the creature's so-called friends run away from him in terror, he burns the place to the ground and vows to return to Geneva to confront Victor about the whole abandonment thing. He's only able to travel by night to avoid the angry townspeople, but one morning he comes across a little girl playing in the woods. He feels a strange sense of gentleness at the sight. He doesn't have to be a monster. Maybe one good person on his side is just what the world needs to accept him. Suddenly, the girl slips into the river and the creature has to think quickly. This is even better. What better way to get him on the good side of humanity than by rescuing somebody? He rescues her and is trying to get her to wake up when the girl's father shows up, freaks out, and shoots him for his trouble. Any feelings of kindness he had towards humanity were currently oozing out of his gunshot wound. He gets up after a while and continues on his journey to Frankenstein's hometown. After 2 months, he finally reaches Geneva. In the woods there, he hears the voice of a child coming up through the woods. The creature makes a decision. He will make friends by force. He reaches out to scoop up the child from his place in the woods, firmly intent on educating this child on his struggles and desires to be friendly. "Child, I do not intend to hurt you," he says over the child screaming. "Listen to me," he says. The child continues to scream and call him names, understandably for the most part. A giant has just plucked him off his feet from the woods. The child threatens to tell his dad, Monsieur Frankenstein, and this makes the creature pause. A Frankenstein. Suddenly, his only thoughts are punishing his creator with the same sense of loss that affects him, and before he knows it, the child is dead. He doesn't know who the child is, only that he is related to his sworn enemy. He takes the locket found around the child's neck and plants it on a random girl he finds sleeping in a barn. He ends his story here, having confessed the murder of William Frankenstein to Victor, his brother. He has one request of the man. "I am alone and miserable," he says, "but one as deformed and horrible as myself would not deny herself to me. This being you must create," which is sort of funny because it's almost a drag of Victor's ability to put together a good-looking creature. But anyway. Chapter 17. Predictably, Victor refuses this request initially. The creature reminds him that it's Victor's fault that he's in this mess in the first place, so eventually he does agree on the promise that if he does this, the creature will leave forever with his companion. The creature agrees to this request and tells Victor that he'll be keeping track of his progress. "When you are ready," he says, "I shall appear." Victor returns home from his trip to the mountains, looking tired and just as messed up as when he initially created the monster, so his family is understandably concerned. Chapter 18. Like any good train wreck, Victor procrastinates his horrible task, and in the meantime, he gets engaged. He and Elizabeth are planning a June wedding, but he has to make this second creature first. He can't risk the creature seeing that he hasn't done what he's promised, or worse, come to the wedding. To stay focused on his task, he chooses to leave Elizabeth behind to give himself some space for his work. He tells his father this, and he agrees, but with the understanding that he take Henry Clerval with him for moral support. This isn't the solitude that Victor was aiming for, but he and Henry set out for another cross-country road trip. He's a little nervous of leaving his family behind with the creature on the loose, but he also knows that he's better off luring the creature away from his loved ones, as the creature had promised to follow him. The dynamic duo head off to England, Victor to make a second monster, and Henry to study poetry or flowers or something like that. Chapter 19. Henry and Victor are in London having an educational party nearly every night. Henry is built for this lifestyle. He loves meeting academics, poets, people with different ideas. He is thriving. Victor is more subdued and keeps to himself. He starts looking for materials to build his second creature with on the side. After a while, the two get an invitation to Scotland and then on to Perth. I told you, they travel a lot in this story. And Victor reluctantly follows Henry, presumably with a bunch of body parts stashed away in his trunk somewhere. Some time passes before Victor can take it no longer. He tells Henry that he really has to be alone for a month or two, but he can't say why. He won't be able to be very social, and he knows how this will bring Henry down. Henry, ever the ultimate bro, takes his hand and says, "I had rather be with you in your solitary rambles than with these Scotch people I do not know." Victor is touched, but he insists. He has to be alone. Henry replies, "Hasten then to return. I cannot feel at home without you." Victor takes off for the most remote part of Scotland, an island that he can find, and he gets to work. Chapter 20. Victor has his doubts. What if this thing that he's creating turns out worse than the first one? What if it kills more people on purpose for sport? What if the first creature stays away like he promised, but she does not? The only thing worse than one creature hell-bent on his destruction is two monsters determined to see him dead. Worse still, what if they hated each other? Victor's already not great at making pretty faces, so what if this is the ugliest thing that the creature has ever seen brought to life, or she from him, and they leave each other? Then there'd be two feral creatures running around different parts of the globe. Or, even still worse, what if they had kids? Would he be solely responsible for a new race of killing machines? Victor is startled out of his panic attack when he glances out the window to see the creature standing there, watching him. A fit of madness strikes Victor, and he bludgeons the female creature to pieces in front of the first creature. The creature screams and disappears. Victor promises to never pick up any monster making ever again. The next morning, the creature comes back to give him one last chance to make good on his promise. Victor swings at him, feral little man that he is, and this creature makes an ominous promise to return on Victor's wedding night. Victor considers his destiny how he wanted to originally be the best, but is now cursed to be remembered among some of the worst, and vows not to go down without a fight. The next day, Victor receives a summons from Henry to join him again. Victor packs up, throws all his science equipment and the remains of the second creature into the ocean, and gets off that island as fast as he can. Victor gets lost along the way, sea storm and all that, but when he eventually does make it to land, he's greeted by the most rude individual telling him that he's in trouble, serious trouble. There's been a murder, and Victor is the prime suspect.